Welcome back to Designing AI-driven Personalized and Adaptive Learning Environments course. In this video, we'll talk about how to use Gen AI to build the path. I think we saw what is SCORM. SCORM is very static in the sense you would have seen demo. There, the content is given. Based on students' response, we can decide the remedial content or the next set of content or repeat the same content. But it is kind of static. It's like you cannot have your own systems. For example, I want to create a simulator, I want to program based, I want to respond based on the student time they spent on each content. If I know the student have the certain misconception, I want to give feedback on that. Those kind of development is a bit of tricky in this COM, and it's not possible in fact. But another big disadvantage in this COM, in the LMS, is that we could log data of when they started, when they end. We also get to know the performance, but we are not able to capture the time on the reading, the time they spent on answering the questions. All those details are not possible in the SCORM. So I can develop your own ITS, of course. The ITS is good, but it requires massive funding. A team of programmers, years of development, and all the ITS we saw in academics, it's need a lot of software development needed. But thanks to LLM in the recent years, in the last 3-5 years. So in last 3 years, we have seen the LLM models can generate the whole set of software, from the scratch to the complete system possible. So basically, you act as a subject matter expert. I know the subject of teaching fractions to the class 6. You also think about a pedagogical designer. I know I want to give a content if the student struggles this, if student response is this particular, I want to give this particular content. You decide your pedagogical expertise, then you create a whole system using LLM as a software team. Here, in fact, the content can be created using LLM if you are a subject matter expert. You could ask LLM to provide a remedial content in real time instead of you creating your own content. That is also possible. Have you developed any system using LLMs? If yes, just list down what are the instructions required or what are instructions you gave to the system to develop the system. Like for example, you would have said, I want a system with certain qualities, what is the inputs, what are the inputs you gave to the LLM to develop such systems. Think about it. If you have not developed any system, like have you tried using, I've heard about somebody creating a system. If they did, what are the features of the system? Think about it, pause the video and write down, then continue. So if you would have created a system using LLM, you might have given a set of instructions saying that you should have a UI like this, you should get input from the learners or the users, then the input should be stored here, the input should be processed, then the output should be shown in certain format. Those kind of instruction we have to give. When we come to the intelligent tutoring systems or the PAL, all we need to know what we want to teach. I want to know the subject. Is it fractions? Is it for class 6 level? How many examples I need to give? What kind of questions I would ask the learners, and what kind of feedbacks, collect the feedbacks, then you give, remedial content or adaptive content. All those things can be created. So first you have to design your own PED logic in a plain English. The logic, and I say that, it is if the students fails the 3 questions in a row, I want to understand why they failed. Based on their reason for fail or reason for their option selection, I want to give remedial content. If the student failed after the remedial content also, I would like the students to move on to next topic because I don't want to stop the student. After giving 20 questions, a student is not able to solve even a 10 question. I need to understand why. Then I need to give a same content again or remedial content, or is the prerequisite is missing, so I should move the learners to the prior level. Suppose the learner is class 6 level, should I move to a class 5 level content? This is your PED logic. You have to write this logic very clearly as a teacher, as an instructor, as a tutor. how do you want to teach? You should think about all the possible scenarios. It is not that all the learner will always learn as you expect. I have a set of content, the learner will read this, they will answer 5 questions, they will pass it. It's not going to work like that. Even you as a learner will not do that way. So I wanted you to think all the possible scenarios, all the failure cases, all the students gaming the system, then develop a pedagogy in a plain English. That's all. Give it to the LLM. It will create into any language you want, Python or JavaScript or React. It will create it. It's very useful for prototype development. It is not, as we mentioned earlier, it is not for the large scale deployment. I cannot use this to deploy in a server and go ahead and deploy it for 10,000 users. Not yet. Maybe LLM can do it in future. But it's very good for prototype. If you are looking for funders to create your ITS and go and use it, create a system, go and get the funding. You all have to do is like, this is a topic I want to create, and this is the LLM ped logic I want to do. The system will create a software and do it. In fact, the vibe coding, that is the process of directing the AI to tell them how should the system look like, how the app should feel look like, how the UI UX, instead of telling them how to write a code. That's called vibe coding now. Use the vibe coding and create a system. So use LLMs to create a prototype, or you want to show us a project to your team, get the feedback, use the LLMs to create a system for the content you want to teach. Once you get funding, create the LLM for all the topics, then work on that. To generate the different type of models in the PAL using LLM. For a domain model, you could feed the whole test book. You can test book of class 6 chapter, in mathematics, chapter say fractions, or you could feed a data structures book due to the system. And if you feed all the book, it needs a lot of tokens, it needs more time, but you could feed a chapter by chapter, okay? And extract the rules, constraints, and buggy concepts and questions, multimedia content. You could create a lot of content from the test book. For example, Notebook LM, the Google Notebook LM, you could feed any content. You could create a mind map, you could create a video, audio, you would create, set of flashcards and questions. It can create a lot of things on it. So LLMs can help you to create the learning model or the domain content, the learning content, not learning model. So you could create the whole domain content from the LLM using the test book you give. However, please make sure that you read all of them and make sure the content is correct. Make sure the questions and options are correct. The LLMs make a lot of mistakes in MCQs. They create a fantastic question, but the options might be wrong. The options won't be there. So don't trust LLM as such directly. So use LLM as the content creator, but you should be the final validator, you should be the final approver. So read the content provided by the LLM and try to create, check the questions and the content accuracy and everything. For learner model, you decide how do you want to compute the learner skill or the mastery or the proficiency. You could use simple item response theory. You could use the student's performance to the set of questions, and those questions can be used to measure their mastery, say 60% of the skill. Or you could ask a BKT to create the proficiency. Or you could say that no, I want to use students time they spend on the the question. If they spend quick or slow, I want to use the response, the misconceptions. I want to track the time they spend on reading the content. Based on that, I want to prefer the proficiency. For example, in a learner module, a student is reading a content very slowly. For example, the student is reading multiple pages and they're spending a lot of time in reading the page, whereas the other student is read for 2 minutes and started interacting with the assessment and started answering few questions. If the LLM stops the session and say the half an hour of the session per day is ending, and if you want to compare the learner's proficiency, if you go by the simple proficiency based on the student's response, the second student who read very little started going and answering assessment, score will come up, say 2 out of 10, 20%. Whereas the student who is spending time to read, read page by page, maybe taking notes, maybe annotating, that student's knowledge learning will not be measured as a 0. So you could create your own system to say that no, my learner model should consider the time they spent on reading also as one of the mastery. If you do that, then it will be also capturing their mastery based on the reading time, the question time, and everything. So you could create this kind of learner module and tell the system how to do it. The system will create a software for that. And pedagogy logic, it's basically if you want to give a remedial content and when to give remedial content, as we mentioned in the last slide, write down your rules in the plain English English, then you could give it to the pedagogy module to create it. So the whole course is about you understanding what is domain module, what is learner module, what is pedagogy module, teaching them correctly to the LLM so that it will create a fantastic software. Then you could test it and recreate it, retrain them and say them, okay, correct these changes, do a changes and create a nice prototype which you can use it to share with the your colleagues or the funders or the organization and everything. Thank you.